over, you just can't breathe. Do you feel your bones start to shake? Do you feel the earthquake? Do you feel your bones start to shake? Do you feel the earthquake? Do you feel your bones start to shake? Do you feel the earthquake? Do you feel your bones start to shake? Do you feel the earthquake?
Hello everyone, and welcome back to, a different game now that we're going to play. We're not doing Half-Life tonight. Today we're going to do something, one of the original walking simulators. It's about an hour long, the game. I say the game. It's more of sort of a visual novel as we go through. So most of this, unless I'm not answering any of the comments, I won't be chatting as such, because the story will be heard. I have turned the audio up on the desktop here so that you should be able to get a you'll be able to hear the dialogue as the story goes on. But hopefully I've set this all up. I have been fiddling with the settings again, and when I do the Xbox setup it's all a bit weird, like again on top of all that. But hopefully the audio from the game it's coming through alright, and I've just pressed two buttons at once there, so ignore that for a minute. So we'll start the game at the lighthouse. As I hope you can see this alright and you can hear it okay there. If it's too loud or too quiet, just let me know in the comments, and I'll adjust the audio, because this one's a bit of an odd one for sound, I think.
Dear Esther, the morning after I was washed ashore, salt in my ears, sand in my mouth, and the waves always at my ankles, I felt as though everything had conspired to this one last shipwreck. I remembered nothing but water, stones in my belly and my shoes, threatening to drag me under to where only the most listless of creatures swim.
I believe that we are on an island, probably an island off the coast of Scotland, I would imagine, given the look. I should have really double-checked on the details before, so I haven't played this for quite a long time. This originally was done kind of like in the Half-Life engine, if I remember correctly, but they revamped it a couple of years ago for the Xbox. But we'll be walking around the island and listening to the story as we go. It's a semi-randomised story, so each time you play can be slightly different. There we go. Prize for who guesses what element that is first. Oh, sorry, what molecule rather that is. I believe it's ethanol, but I could be wrong. So as we go through this, as I said, it's a walking simulator. This is as fast as we'll be moving through it. There will be a little bit of backtracking, because I will like explore all the areas as we go, just so you can see it. But I thought doing something nice and slow-paced might be a nice change from all the explosions that we've been doing in Half-Life.
When you were born, your mother told me, a hush fell over the delivery room. A great red birthmark covered the left side of your face. No one knew what to say, so you cried to fill the vacuum. I always admired you for that you cried to fill whatever vacuum you found. I began to manufacture vacuums just to enable you to deploy your talent. The birthmark faded by the time you were 6 and had gone completely by the time we met, but your fascination with the empty and its cure remained.
So I hope the audio when it's being read out is clear for everybody. Just let me know if it needs to be adjusted.
Dear Esther, I found myself to be as featureless as this ocean, as shallow and unoccupied as this bay, a listless wreck without identification. My rocks are these bones, and a careful fence to keep the precipice at bay. Shot through me caves, my forehead a mount. This aerial will transmit into me so. All overexposed, the nervous system, where Donnelly's boots and yours and mine still trample. I will carry a torch for you. I will leave it at the foot of my headstone. You will need it for the tunnels that carry me under.
So I hope everyone's doing all right and enjoying their quarantine time.
Donnelly's book had not been taken out from the library since 1974. I decided it would never be missed as I slipped it under my coat and avoided the librarian's gaze on the way out. If the subject matter is obscure, the writer's literary style is even more so. It is not the text of a stable or trustworthy reporter. Perhaps it is fitting that my only companion in these last days should be a stolen book written by a dying man. When someone had died or was dying, or was so ill they gave up what little hope they could sacrifice, they cut parallel lines into the cliff, exposing the white chalk beneath. You could see them from the mainland or the fishing boats, and know to send aid or impose a cordon of protection, and wait a generation until whatever pestilence stalked the cliff paths died along with its hosts. My lines are just for this, to keep any would-be rescuers at bay. The infection is not simply of the flesh.
They were God-fearing people, those shepherds. There was no love in the relationship. Donnelly tells me that they had one Bible that was passed around in strict rotation. It was stolen by a visiting monk in 1776, 2 years before the island was abandoned altogether. In the interim, I wonder, did they assign chapter and verse to the stones and grasses, marking the geography with a superimposed significance that they could actually walk the Bible and inhabit its contradictions? Dear Esther, I met Paul. I made my own little pilgrimage. My Damascus, a small semi-detached on the outskirts of Wolverhampton. We drank coffee in his kitchen and tried to connect to one another. Although he knew I hadn't come in search of an apology, reason or retribution, he still spiraled in panic, thrown high and lucid by his own dented bonnet. Responsibility had made him old. Like us, he'd already passed beyond any conceivable boundary of life.
Oh, that's good, Creeper. I wasn't sure if I'd gotten the because I've raised the game audio more than what I normally do for when we play like things like Half-Life and stuff. But as long as you can hear all the dialogue nice and clearly, that's the main thing in our sort of like late night stroll, shall we say, that we're having here.
This hermit, this seer, this distant historian of bones and old bread, where did he vanish to? Why? Asked the farmers. Why? Asked Jakobsen. Why bother with your visions at all, if you're just to throw your arms up at the cliff and let it close in behind you and seal you into the belly of the island, a museum shut to all but the most devoted?
That maybe is a virus diagram, do we think? Could be. And I think, is that ethanol again, maybe? My chemistry's a bit rusty. I've only ever played this game the once, but you never know. We might revisit every couple of months. We might come back because, as I said, it is a slightly randomised story each time, so we might get different things each time.
He still maintains he wasn't drunk, but tired. I can't make the judgment or the distinction anymore. I was drunk when I landed here, and tired too. I walked up the cliff path in near darkness and camped in the bay where the trawler lies beached. It was only at dawn that I saw the bothy and decided to make my temporary lodgings there. I was expecting just the aerial and a transmitter stashed in a weatherproof box somewhere on the mount. It had an air of uneasy permanence to it. Like all the other buildings here, erosion seems to have evaded it completely.
I've been to quite a few of these types of structures across the various islands off the north coast of Scotland. You can always check out my website because there is scattered photos from those different expeditions dotted around on my website. Especially on the Orkney trip, there's a few of these sorts of henges that I've photographed over the years. One in Cumbria as well, that the weather was that bad it actually destroyed one of my best lenses. So I've got to count all these loading screens.
Dear Esther, I have now driven the stretch of the M5 between Exeter and Bristol over 21 times. But although I have all the reports and all the witnesses and have cross-referenced them within a millimetre using my Ordnance Survey maps, I simply cannot find the location. You'd think there would be marks to serve as some evidence. It's somewhere between the turn-off for Sanford and the welcome brake services, but although I can always see it in my rear-view mirror, I have as yet been unable to pull ashore. All night the boy has kept me lucid. I sat when I was at the very edge of despair, when I thought I would never unlock the secret of the island. I sat at the edge and I watched the idiot boy blink through the night. He's mute and he's retarded, and he has no thought in his metal head but to blink each wave and each minute aside until the morning comes and renders him blind as well as deaf mute. In many ways, we have much in common. There must be a hole in the bottom of the boat. How else could new hermits have arrived?
So I hope everyone's finding this at least something different and interesting to play just for a change. I said this game's been around for quite a long time, and the revamp mode's been out for quite a few years as well now. But we will return to our regularly scheduled explosions and shooting guns and what have you tomorrow.
I had kidney stones and you visited me in the hospital. After the operation, when I was still half submerged in anesthetic, your outline and your speech both blurred. Now my stones have grown into an island and made their escape, and you have been rendered opaque by the car of a drunk. Is this what Paul saw through his windscreen? Not Lot's wife looking over her shoulder, but a scar in the hillside, falling away to black forever. Begun to climb, away from the sea and towards the center. It is a straight line to the summit, where the evening begins to coil around the aerial and squeeze the signals into early silence. The bothy squats against the mount to avoid the gaze of the aerial. I too will creep under the island like an animal and approach it from the northern shore. The bothy was constructed originally in the early 1700s. By then, shepherding had formalized into a career. The first habitual shepherd was a man called Jakobsen, from a lineage of migratory Scandinavians. He was not considered a man of breeding by the mainlanders. He came here every summer whilst building the bothy, hoping eventually that becoming a man of property would secure him a wife and a lineage. Donnelly records that it did not work. He caught some disease from his malcontented goats and died 2 years after completing it. There was no one to carve white lines into the cliff for him either. Three cormorants seen at dusk. They did not land. This house built of stone, built by a long-dead shepherd. Contents: my camp bed, a stove, a table, chairs, my clothes, my books. The caves that score out the belly of this island, leaving it famished. I will descend into the caves and follow only the phosphorescence home.
That went a bit weird there. My television just cut out. Sounds like the wind's picking up.
In a footnote, the editor comments that at this point, Donnelly was going insane as syphilis tore through his system like a drunk driver. He's not to be trusted. Many of his claims are unsubstantiated, and although he does paint a colourful picture, much of what he says may have been derived directly from his fever. But I've been here, and I know, as Donnelly did, that this place is always half imagined. Even the rocks and caves will shimmer and blur with the right eyes. They found Jakobsen in early spring. The thaw had only just come. Even though he'd been dead nearly 7 months, his body had been frozen right down to the nerves and had not even begun to decompose. He'd struggled halfway down the cliff path, perhaps looking for some lost goat, or perhaps in a delirium, and expired, curled into a claw right under the winter moon. Even the animals shunned his corpse. The mainlanders thought to bring it home unlucky. Donnelly claims they dragged it to the caves to thaw out and rot, but he is proving an unreliable witness. Climbing down to the caves, I slipped and fell and have injured my leg. I think the femur is broken. It is clearly infected. The skin has turned a bright, tight pink, and the pain is crashing in on waves, winter tides against my shoreline, drowning out the ache of my stones. I struggled back to the bothy to rest, but it has become clear that there is only one way this is likely to end. The medical supplies I looted from the trawler have suddenly found their purpose. They will keep me lucid for my final ascent.
finding this easier to see what I'm doing on OBS than what I am actually on the proper screen. What if there wasn't the 2-second delay? So just we're probably past about the halfway mark, I would think, probably in this game so far. I can't quite remember the full length. But one thing we'll just do before we go that, I don't know if you're still there, Creeper, but I solved the issue of me keep saying Twitch when I meant to say, sorry, Twitter rather, when I meant to say Twitch. Thank you for joining me today. If you are enjoying our journey and would like to see more, then please rate, comment, favourite and subscribe in whichever manner your chosen platform allows. If you are joining us on Twitch, Mixer or YouTube, where we have loads more for you to watch, from our live streams to all our episodes across our various series. You can also drop by and say hi over on Discord, where we chat about everything from Minecraft to books and movies to tabletop games. But most importantly, thank you very much for watching and have a lovely day. So let's continue. Yeah, I thought I'd do that and it finally solved the issue of mixing it up.
Did Jakobsen crawl this far? Can I identify the scratches his nails ruined into the rocks? Am I following him cell for cell, inch for inch? Why did he turn back on himself and not carry through to the ascent?
I don't really know what I'm doing, to be honest. Just thinking, oh, that might be a good idea to do, and then connecting it to one of the buttons on the stream deck. Like half of the stream deck commands are for for doing the stream, and then the rest of it I put all sorts of programming shortcuts for when I'm working. Passwords to log into all my different clients' things, rather than me having to go and copy and paste them. I've got a password panel on the stream deck. I just click on the logo for the company I'm logging into and it loads me straight into their servers.
I first saw him sat by the side of the road. I was waiting for you to be cut out of the wreckage. The car looked like it had been dropped from a great height. The guts of the engine spilled over the tarmac, like water underground.
Still more of what looks like a virus. That looks like a circuit diagram. I'm not quite sure what the circuit's supposed to be. Ah, this is a different compound. 100% certain for that one. No, I'll have to go back because I'm not 100% on the formulas for the different compounds, or molecules even. If this was a real place, I would love to come and photograph it. We're getting close to the surface again, members. No, we're still in the tunnels.
In my final dream, I sat at peace with Jakobsen and watched the moon over the Sandford Junction. Goats grazed on the hard shoulder, a world gone to weed and redemption. He showed me his fever scars, and I mine, between each shoulder the nascency of flight.
Must be the other way. I had a 50-50 chance of going in the right direction. we ascend the cave.
When I was coming round from the operation, I remember the light they shone in my eyes to check for pupil contraction. It was like staring up at a moonlit sky from the bottom of a well. People moved at the summit, but I could not tell if you were one of them.
Looks like a mixture of a wiring diagram and some molecules put in there as well.
Sandford Junction, headlights in your retinas. Donnelly drove a grey hatchback without a bottom. All the creatures of the tarmac rose to sing to him. All manner of symbols crudely scrawled across the cliff face of my unrest. My life reduced to an electrical diagram. All my gulls have taken flight. They will no longer roost on these outcrops. The lure of the moon over the Sandford Junction is too strong.
More diagrams on the rocks.
We shall begin to assemble our own version of the North Shore. We will scrawl in dead languages and electrical diagrams and hide them away for future theologians to muse and mumble over. We will send a letter to Esther Donnelly and demand her answer. We will mix the paint with ashes and tarmac and the glow from our infections. We will paint a moon over the Sandford Junction and blue lights falling like stars along the hard shoulder. There were chemical diagrams on the mug he gave me coffee in, sticky at the handle where his hands shook. He worked for a pharmaceutical company with an office based on the outskirts of Wolverhampton. He'd been travelling back from a sales conference in Exeter, forming a strategic vision for the peddling of antacid yogurt to the European market. You could trace the connections with your finger, join the dots, and whole new compounds would be summoned into activity. From here, I can see my armada. I collected all the letters I'd ever meant to send to you, if I'd have ever made it to the mainland, but had instead collected at the bottom of my rucksack, and I spread them out along the lost beach. Then I took each and every one, and I folded them into boats. I folded you into the creases, and then, as the sun was setting, I set the fleet to sail. Shattered into 21 pieces, I consigned you to the Atlantic, and I sat here until I'd watched all of you sink.
Has it got a page on these in your book, Creeper, that you were showing us yesterday? As a guy I used to work with, as I was saying, he used to keep on making these, and whenever the car park was flooded at where we worked, he would put them on the. He would make all the paper boats, and he would put them on the flooded car park and watch them sail across it in the wind.
When Paul keeled over dead on the road to Damascus, they resuscitated him by hitting him in the chest with stones gathered by the roadside. He was lifeless for 21 minutes, certainly long enough for the oxygen levels in his brain to have decreased and caused hallucinations and delusions of transcendence. I'm running out of painkillers, and the moon has become almost unbearably bright. I've begun my voyage in a paper boat without a bottom. I will fly to the moon in it. I've been folded along a crease in time, a weakness in the sheet of life. Now you've settled on the opposite side of the paper to me. I can see your traces in the ink that soaks through the fiber, the pulped vegetation. When we become waterlogged and the cage disintegrates, we will intermingle. When this paper aeroplane leaves the cliff edge and carves parallel vapor trails in the dark, we will come together. If only Donnelly had experienced this, he would have realized he was his own shoreline, as am I. Just as I am becoming this island, so he became his syphilis, retreating into the burning synapses, the stones, the infection. returning to my car afterwards, hands still shaking, and a head split open by the impact. Goodbye to tearful aunts and traumatized uncles. Goodbye to the phenomenal. Goodbye to the tangible. Goodbye Wolverhampton. Goodbye Sanford. Goodbye Cromer. Goodbye Damascus. This cliff path is slippery in the dew. It is hard to climb with such an infection. I must carve out the bad flesh and sling it from the aerial. I must become infused with the very air.
A gull perched on a spent bonnet, sideways, whilst the sirens fell through the middle distance and the metal moaned in grief about us. I'm about this night in walking, old bread and gull bones, old Donnelly at the bar gripping his drink, old Esther walking with our children, old Paul as ever, old Paul. He shakes and he shivers and he turns off his lights alone.
I've run out of places to climb. I will abandon this body and take to the air.
Dear Esther, I have burned the cliffs of Damascus. I have drunk deep of it. My heart is my leg and a black line etched on the paper all along this boat without a bottom. You are all the world like a nest to me. Eggs unbroken form like fossils, come together, send small black flowers to the air. From this infection, hope. From this island, flight. From this grief, love.
come back.
And that, everyone, concludes Dear Esther, or at least that particular story. As I said at the beginning, I didn't want to talk over this one very much because I wanted the story, the dialogue, and the music to actually tell the story as we went. But I hope you enjoyed that. We will, maybe next month or the month after, we will revisit this game because, as I said, it is a slightly randomized story, so we'll get like different dialogue to go through. But there is also the developer's commentary as well, which we can listen to and get some like background, similar to what we did on Half-Life 2: The Lost Coast, where we played through it a second time and we got the the developers' little audio bullet points going through it to tell us some backstory of the game. But I do have some like similar sort of games lined up like this for the future, where it's the walking simulator style ones, as well as some point and click adventures as well that we're going to be doing. But I'm having a little bit of, because it's like a 1990s and early 90s point and click game. I'm having a little bit of bother recoding it to work properly on Windows 10, because it's one of the games in particular is 20 years old. So actually, no, it'll be even more than that. It might be 25 or more, actually, when I think about it, but we'll deal with that when the time comes. I haven't finished rewriting the game to actually make it run properly. And then I've got to do something about the ultra-wide screen as well for for playing it on that. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you all next time. Thank you for joining me today. If you are enjoying our journey and would like to see more, then please rate, comment, favourite and subscribe in whichever manner your chosen platform allows. If you are joining us on Twitch, Mixer or YouTube, where we have loads more for you to watch, from our live streams to all our episodes across our various series. You can also drop by and say hi over on Discord, where we chat about everything from Minecraft to books and movies to tabletop games. But most importantly, thank you very much for watching and have a lovely day.